Hello everyone, my name is Olivia and welcome to quite possibly my most exciting book haul that I'm ever going to film on this channel. This book haul is full of really exciting reads that I think are all going to become 5-star books. So this might be a 5-star book prediction video as well, but it's also comprised of a lot of 2024 anticipated releases that publishers gave to me that I am so excited to get to. So let's get right into it because there are so many books that I cannot believe are in my hands right now. And I think they're all going to be amazing reads. I'm also going through an internal battle of liking this outfit but also being flashed back to Catholic school uniforms, and I'm choosing to believe that I don't look like I belong in an academy right now. So the first part of this book haul are books given to me by publishers, and I am so excited for all of them. And I'm going to say excited multiple times in this video, but I hope you do believe that I'm genuinely so excited about each and every one of these books. So the first two books are actually already out, and we have The Warm Hands of Ghost by Katherine Arden. Katherine Arden previously published The Bear and the Nightingale, and I really enjoyed that trilogy. It's one of the few fantasy trilogies that really gripped me and left an impression on me, and The Warm Hands of Ghost is a mixture of horror and historical fiction, and I'm so keen to dive into this right after I film this video because I need to know what's going to happen. It is a standalone novel set during the Great War, and a combat nurse searches for her brother who's believed to be dead in the trenches despite eerie signs that suggest otherwise. It says it's a hauntingly beautiful historical novel with a speculative twist, and I'm just so intrigued by this premise. It also came with a couple of postcards. So we have a beautiful haunting postcard of this castle in Europe that I've always wanted to visit because I've always seen pictures of it, and on the back it says, "I will bring him back if I can. If I don't and the war is over, you must ask," and then the rest is smudged out, which is so intriguing. And then we have a mysterious ad that I don't know anything about because obviously I haven't read the book yet, but I am most definitely going to start this book next because Katherine Arden is such an atmospheric and vivid writer where she's able to bring this lush setting to life, and I'm really intrigued by the fact that it's a historical fiction with a speculative twist, and I think she's going to bring a really unique horror element to this historical fiction, and I know it's going to be a beautiful read because Katherine Arden is such a wonderful author. Another book that was already published that was gifted to me by Random House is Miracle in the Andes by Nando, Parrado, and he is one of the survivors of the Andes plane crash, which Society of the Snow, a new Netflix movie which is nominated for Best International Film at the Oscars, is about. So I watched Society of the Snow in the beginning of 2024, and it is one of my new favorite movies of all time. It is the most anxiety-inducing, heartbreaking films that I've ever seen. And the way that they explored the joint survival of all these people working together and their friendship and their brotherhood and the way that they really clung on to hope was beautiful in Society of the Snow. So I immediately knew after finishing that movie that I wanted to read a couple nonfictions from the survivors. So when I saw that Random House was giving away copies of Miracle in the Andes, I decided to sign up to get a copy because I did want to get a copy to add to my collection, and Nando is one of the people who actually did the hike to try and go find help after 72 days of surviving in the coldest climate that humans have ever tried to survive in, and I'm so interested in hearing about his journey, his thoughts, his hope that he carried, and how he was able to survive such a difficult situation. And I'm so full of awe and respect towards these survivors, and I know this is going to be a really heartbreaking read to hear about all the things that he and his friends had to go through in order to survive. So thank you so much to Random House for gifting me a copy of Miracle in the Andes. The next book is coming out in March, and it is The Great Divide, and this is another historical fiction about the construction of the Panama Canal. The Great Divide explores the intersecting lives of activists, fishmongers, laborers, journalists, neighbors, doctors, and soothsayers, and those rarely acknowledged by history even as they carved out its course. So one thing that I'm trying to do is learn more about Latin American history because I am Cuban and I want to learn as much as possible because we don't learn a lot about Latin American history in our school system in America, so I'm always trying to dive into Latin Latin American historical fictions just to learn more about different pieces of history from the array of countries that make up Latin America itself. So I've never read a book set in Panama. I'm excited to learn more about the construction of the Panama Canal from the eyes of people from Panama. And while this is a historical fiction and these are characters and are not necessarily real people, I do believe that it will bring to light a different viewpoint of the Panama Canal. And I actually started the audiobook and I think I'm going to listen to it that way because I really enjoyed the narrator. So if you have any niche historical fictions that you would highly recommend I dive into, because I love historical fiction, put those recommendations down below, because I'm always trying to learn about different pieces of history that we don't necessarily dive into in all the different history classes that we attended in academia. So thank you so much to Ecco Books for gifting me a copy of this. The next book that I have from publishers comes out in July, and I am also very excited for this, but also very hesitant because of something that's on the back of the book. And it's Anyone's Ghost by August Thompson. And on the back of the book, it says, in the words of Jonathan Safran Foer, this book will make you cry. I love a book that will make me cry. I love sad books. I'm always seeking out sad books. And when I saw this on TikTok in someone's highly anticipated reads of 2024, I was intrigued. I added it to my own list, and the publisher kindly gifted me a copy because I also shared my excitement about it over on my Instagram. It says it's an extraordinary debut in which the transforming love and friendship between two young men during one unforgettable teenage summer in rural New England haunts them into adulthood. So what made me intrigued about this book was the fact that I recently saw Saltburn, and I loved the relationship between the two boys in Saltburn, and I wanted to get something that is a little bit more tragic and a little bit more transformative, because their relationship just brushed the surface of a romantic relationship, and I'm very intrigued by this book, not only because it says it's going to make me cry, but also it seems right up my alley. And the first line of the novel says it took 3 car crashes to kill Jake. I'm intrigued. I really do hope it brings forth a lot of emotions in me, and I'm wondering if it will make me cry, but color me intrigued. I literally only saw a couple people mention it on TikTok, and then I read the synopsis and I loved how vague it was, and I loved how it feels like those types of novels where you know something bad is going to happen but you can't stop reading, and those are my favorite types of novels. And I also love how it has like these hints of pink. I think that's really dynamic to mix with the black and white, and I'm very glad that Penguin Press provided me with an advanced reader's copy, so thank you so much to them. And yeah, let me know if you've heard about this one, and let me know if it's also on your TBR for 2024. Now we're on to my last book that was gifted to me by a publisher that is my most anticipated read of 2024. It comes out in August, a couple days after my birthday, and it is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. Every few months on Twitter before I deleted my account, I would always tweet, I need a book about Lady Macbeth. I need a book exploring her life, her motivations, why she is that way. And we finally have a book about Lady Macbeth, and I think it's going to change my life. I don't want to be dramatic, but I do think this will be an instant 5 out of 5 star read for me, and I'm considering doing a reading vlog for it because this is my most anticipated read of 2024. This is a reimagining of Lady Macbeth, Shakespeare's most famous villainess, giving her a voice, a past, and a power that transforms the story men have written for her. I really do think that we should do more explorations of Shakespeare's characters because I think that they are so interesting in all their different ways, and there are so many ways that you can unfold their story or reimagine their story. We don't know a lot about Lady Macbeth. We don't know her motivations. We don't know why she's so harsh and why she's so determined to ruin everyone in their path in order to get her way. And she reminds me a lot of Cersei from Game of Thrones, and I'm wondering if George R.R. Martin was actually inspired by Lady Macbeth to create Cersei Lannister, because I see a lot of similarities in their personalities and their motivations. And this book just intrigues me so much. I want to read it immediately. I want to dive into this world. I am so happy that we have a Lady Macbeth book, and I hope it inspires people to do more Shakespeare retellings. There's endless possibilities that you can do with all the different characters that he has, and they're all so interesting in their own right, and I cannot believe this is in my hands. So thank you so much to Del Rey and Random House for gifting me this copy, because wow, I'm so excited for this. Another book that was gifted to me off my wish list, and this is from Matt, and I previously mentioned this in a vlog of mine, but I wanted to share it here, and it is Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney. I recently read a Sally Rooney book for the first time, and it was Normal People, and I loved it. Spoiler alert. If you want to see that reading vlog, I will be sure to link it down below because I had a great time reading Normal People. I fell in love with the story and the characters and how tragic it was, and now I have Beautiful World, Where Are You? This seems like the perfect read for someone in their late 20s where there's so many different things that are changing in your life, both within yourself, within your friendships, within your relationships, within your job. There's a constant change around you and it's a lot to deal with. And I think that Sally Rooney really does a good job at exploring what it's like to be in your 20s and how tumultuous it is and how anxious it is and how you can feel deluded by it all. And I love how we expanded her exploration of these characters into 4 characters, because Normal People follows 2 points of views between Connell and Marianne, but now we have 4 people. So I am really interested to see the different ways that their lives unfold and how they all interconnect together. And I also think this cover is beautiful. Cannot wait to read another Sally Rooney book. So thank you so much to Matt for gifting me a copy of Beautiful World, Where Are You? I cannot wait to dive into it. And then I got myself a copy of Conversations with Friends by Sally Rooney. Can you notice a trend that I really enjoyed Normal People and I want to read all of her books? Even though she only has 3 out, I want to read all of them. So Conversations with Friends is actually Sally Rooney's first book, which I recently found out in my previous reading vlog. Conversations with Friends follows Frances, who is 21 years old. She's a student in Dublin and she's an aspiring writer. And she becomes friends with a woman named Melissa, who is married to a man named Nick, and he is an actor. And she enters a beautiful world of holiday parties and dinners and beautiful houses, and when you're in your 20s, that can really suck you into a world that might not be too good for you. And it says when Frances and Nick unexpectedly get closer, the sharp and witty emotion-averse Frances is forced to honestly confront her own vulnerabilities for the first time. I've said this before, but this feels like such a messy read. Normal People is a pretty messy book because the 2 characters self-sabotage so often, but this seems like another level of self-sabotage to knowingly go and get into a relationship between a woman and her husband and kind of immerse herself in this world knowing that she's probably going to develop feelings for one of them. And I'm so excited for this. I'm so excited for the drama. I'm so excited for the conversations that are going to happen because messiness is going to unfold. People are going to make mistakes and it's going to be under the guise of, oh, I was in my early 20s, I didn't know better. I'm so excited for it. I'm so excited. I love living vicariously through characters who are extremely messy because I'm not a messy person. I'm a very straightforward, very level-headed type of person. So being able to explore the messiness that someone can have in their 20s and the decisions that you would never make is so fun to me. I gobble it up, and I think this one's going to be a really fun, really messy time. The next 2 reads I actually already read, and these are the only 2 books that I have read out of this entire book haul, and the first one is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. This is her first foray into paranormal romance between a vampire woman and a werewolf alpha man, and this is a book that I read. That's all I have to say about it. So the thing about this book that I didn't really enjoy was the fact that the world felt so made up, and I don't know how to describe that in any different way. I know every single book is made up, and I know every book is fictional if you're reading a fictional book, but the world felt so fake and felt so forced, and the words that she used and the different clans all felt so poorly executed. Maybe that's the word. And I could not get on board with it. I didn't feel like I cared about any of the characters. They felt very flat for me. The romance itself didn't really intrigue me. I only ever felt like these 2 characters spoke about the plot. I feel like they never really got to know each other. I felt like we never got to see their relationship blossom. And that's what made me not really enjoy Bride by Ali Hazelwood. So I don't know if I'm going to keep up my copy of Bride actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, if I felt so lukewarm about it, why would I keep it on my shelf? I don't know, but I got this and I read it. Anyway, the next book that I recently bought and I immediately read and gave 5 stars to was 84 Charing Cross Road, and this is a nonfiction letter collection between Helen and her letters that she sent to a bookshop in London requesting books. This is simply a collection of her correspondence between her and the booksellers and how they grew closer to one another and how they formed a relationship with each other through letter writing during the 50s, and how Helen was so generous and was able to send them over meat whenever they had rations, and how these booksellers went out of their way to find Helen's most requested and anticipated reads, and how they exchanged these two things back and forth between one another. And this is just a sweet, cozy read where you get to see these groups of people connect with one another through their shared love of literature, and how you can care for someone without ever actually seeing them. And this just really reminds you of the beauty of the human connection, and it was such a sweet read. And this was recommended to me by my friend Ariel, who I went to New York City with, and we had such a wonderful day. We went to a bookstore and then we went to the MoMA, and she recommended me 84 Charing Cross Road, so I obviously got it. And then I recommended to her The Letters of Vincent van Gogh because we both really enjoy letter collections, and I think that she would really enjoy The Letters of Vincent van Gogh because I love Vincent van Gogh so much and his letters are beautiful. So after we went to the bookstore, we also went to the MoMA, and in the MoMA I got myself 2 postcards because I love collecting postcards from different places that I visit. I got myself an Edward Hopper painting postcard because Edward Hopper is one of my favorite painters of all time, and then I got myself a postcard of Vincent van Gogh's Olive Trees. So I finally saw this at the MoMA and I loved it so much, and I thought it was really interesting because in the room where the olive trees are, right beside it is Starry Night, and everyone is crowding around Starry Night. Everyone wants a picture of Starry Night, and nobody was looking at Vincent van Gogh's Olive Trees. So I decided to go look at it, and then I thought to myself, oh my god, my name, Olivia, means olive tree. And I love Vincent van Gogh in a way that I can't even describe, or else I'll start crying because I genuinely think he's one of the most important artists in my life. He's changed my perspective. He's made such an impact on me, and to know that he has a painting called Olive Tree and my name means olive tree makes me feel so much more connected to him. So I had to get myself a postcard of the olive trees to add to my postcard collection on my door. And then in the bookstore that Ariel and I also visited, I got myself a copy of Letters to Milena by Franz Kafka. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. Franz Kafka's letters and diaries has always interested me because I've always seen them quoted on Tumblr, and he has such a way with words. He's a very sad man. He's very depressed, but sometimes his letters and his quotes are very relatable, and I've always found myself wanting to read his letters and his diaries. So this is the first of his collections that I picked up by him. What begins as a business correspondence soon develops into a passionate but doomed epistolary love affair. Kafka's Czech translator, Milena, was a gifted and charismatic 23-year-old who was uniquely able to recognize Kafka's complex genius and his even more complex character. It was to Milena that he revealed his most intimate self and eventually entrusted his diaries for safekeeping. So Franz Kafka became so connected to Milena that he fell in love with her because she was translating his work. And I think that's such an interesting relationship. Being a translator is such an interesting job because you have so much power over the words that you're reading and translating, and you can do it in so many different ways. There's so many different ways to structure a sentence. A sentence said in one language can mean something completely different in another language if you just bare bones Google translate it. So when you're a translator, you have to really think about the message of the sentence, and you have to think about the wording and how you're going to translate it to another language. So the fact that Franz Kafka fell in love with one of his translators just because she really understood him is fascinating to me. This is something that I'm very, very excited by, and I'm happy I finally got myself a copy when I was with Ariel because she enabled me. She was like, why not get it? And I was like, you're so true. I'm going to read it eventually. I'm going to highlight and annotate it why not get it while I'm hanging out with you? So it was such a great time to see her, and I got 2 amazing reads. One I already gave 5 stars to, and one I feel like I might give 5 stars to. During another trip to New York City, my friends and I were waiting for a reservation and we were about 30 minutes early, so I decided to search up on the maps for a bookstore nearby because I love stopping at different bookstores in New York City to explore them because there are so many different ones that you can visit. And we were at a cafe and the bookstore was right around the corner, so it was fate, and all of us went into it. We all wandered the bookstore. A lot of us got different copies of different books, and I decided to get myself a copy of Antony and Cleopatra by William Shakespeare, and it also came with a really cool bookmark. A lot of the books that I got at the independent bookstores all came with their own bookmarks, so I never buy myself bookmarks anymore because I always get them from indie bookshops and they're always really unique, and I'm very particular with Shakespeare editions. I wanted to get myself the Barnes & Noble edition because there's a specific Barnes & Noble Shakespeare collection that I love. I love the way that they have it laid out. I think it's really accessible and it's my favorite edition to read from, but I couldn't find a copy of Antony and Cleopatra anywhere from that edition, so I decided to finally fold and get myself the Folger edition. On one side is the text, and then we have the footnotes and the different definitions of different words, and I'm hoping that this edition will be easy to read from, like the Barnes & Noble edition, but only time will tell. And the last book that I got is from Split Rock Books in Cold Spring, New York. I went up there with my family and I stopped into the bookstore, and I actually made friends with one of the booksellers there, and I was speaking to her and she was so kind and she was so welcoming, and I knew I had to get myself a copy of a book from the bookstore to help support her and the store itself. So I decided to get a book that's been on my TBR for the longest time, and it is All's Well by Mona Awad. All's Well follows an actress named Miranda who gets into an accident and deals with chronic back pain, but she's determined to do her rendition of All's Well That Ends Well by William Shakespeare. But she is dealing with a cast that is hellbent on doing Macbeth instead. And then it says she meets 3 strange benefactors who have an eerie knowledge of Miranda's past and a tantalizing promise for her future. It says it's a novel about a woman's breaking point and a piercingly funny indictment of our collective refusal to witness and believe female pain. So this is a book that I was so excited to pick up because it's been on my TBR for a while and I just kind of bit the bullet and got myself a copy. So those are all my reads in my very exciting possible 5-star read prediction book haul. I think these books all have the ability to become new favorite reads of mine. I'm very excited about each and every one of them. They're all very different. Let me know if there are any books that you think I should put at the top of my priority, and let me know if there are any books that you would like to see a reading vlog about. I most definitely want to do one for Lady Macbeth because that is my most anticipated read of 2024, and let me know what are some of your most anticipated reads of 2024. I would love to add more to my list. And if you are not following me over on Instagram, I post on my stories every single day and you can get updates there that you won't see here. Thank you so much to the publishers and Matt for gifting me such amazing reads. And if you have made it this far in the video, leave a book stack emoji down below so we can see who stays for the longest in all my videos. If you do, thank you so much, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!